So, welcome to Gary Kasl's shooting and editing techniques. So, I'm going to basically cover my approach to shooting a space. Like, we're going to go over just more basic rooms, like smaller, like bedrooms, bathrooms, and we're going to go into more complicated rooms like kitchens and great rooms and stuff like that. But the entire time that I'm showing you guys, all this stuff, I'm not making any claims to being the guru of anything or doing anything like the right way. And there's only one way to do it. I'm just showing you what I do and how I process this stuff. So hopefully you understand that. If you learn something, great. If you don't, I'm sorry, but I'm just basically going to try to show you and try to give you as much information that I can but it's all just coming from me. I'm not, I'm not writing any manuals on how to do stuff like the right or the wrong way. I'm just showing you how I do it. So first things first though, every time I'm approaching a photo, composition is the first thing that you think about. This is the most important part of a photo, hands down to me. There's nothing else that will make or break the quality of your photo like composition will. Because you can do the best processing, the best lighting, anything that you could do to make it shine, but if your composition's off, it's not going to work. So this is step number one. When you walk into a room, the first thing I'm going to do is define the main selling features. And what I mean by that is I'm going to look at everything in the room that's going to help this house sell and kind of showcase, whatever main features there are in each room. So in this house right here, for this example, I mean, there's a million things in this house that'll help it sell, but I'm going to try to pick apart the things to focus on. And especially when I compartmentalize down to each room, like the living room and the dining room and the kitchen, I look at what's a feature in that room particularly. So, i.e. the living room. First thing we're going to want to show them is, the fireplace and what it's going to look like when you're sitting in this room. In this room also, I mean, we can show the hallways that's connecting to wherever those rooms go, but we're also showing the alcove ceiling, the little built-ins next to the fireplace, and just how basically the mantle goes all the way up there. So those are important features, I would say. Here's another example of another shot of the living room looking outside with the big pocket doors. So that's huge. I'm pretty sure that's a national thing now, so not just where I live at, but these doors are huge in my area and everybody wants them. And so, showing them is an important part of taking a photo and showing this house. It's a big feature. Next thing I'm going to do is decide on what angle I'm going to shoot. It's either a 1-point or a 2-point perspective. So you basically just pick an angle. 1 point is the top shot. It's your all the lines are going into a single point. Basically, they're all following into a single point in the photo. 2-point is just that they're going to 2 points. So I'm sure we all know what a 1 point and a 2 point is, but basically composition, I'm going to decide on what I'm doing as far as an angle goes. Next step is I try to back up as much as I can within, with the confines. Like if, you don't want to back up to where you're missing out on features, but try to back up as much as you can. And then zoom in if you can. And what that does is it brings the compression and it kind of gets rid of the perspective distortion, which is not a very desirable thing.
Go back to your to the 1-point, 2-point slide.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think one thing to think about with that back up and zoom in is if you didn't do that on that top image, that island would look massive. and it
Yeah,
would look weirdly massive. It would look almost like an aircraft carrier, whereas there, it's still a big island. You can tell it's a big island from the 2-point perspective, but it's not overly clownish like a circus. You know, it's
yeah,
more natural and looks pleasing to the eye. And that's
yeah,
one thing
and
I think you see a lot of is people don't back up and zoom in. They just
right,
get as close as they can and go as wide as they can, and it just doesn't look natural.
right. And I mean, this shot right here, you can kind of see from the 2-point. There was a wall. You'll see it in another photo too, and I'm sure you probably already saw it in one of the photos before. But there's not a lot of space for this 1-point on the top here. But I did back up as much as I could. And then we're talking about, even if you only got 6 inches to back up that 6 inches, because it can help a lot. And then zoom in as much as you can. But I have a couple. So this shot was at 39 millimeters, and I shot it with a 24-70. I could have easily, shot this at 24 millimeters, or I had a 16 millimeter in my bag. I'm sure I could have got up close and shot it with 16 millimeters, but I backed it up and shot it at 39, just to kind of bring everything into the scene, nice and tight. Now the island and everything is proportioned like correctly. It doesn't look weird. Here's a 1-point perspective from the other side, and like I said, there's not a whole lot of room on that side, but this one I was able to back up and shoot it at 50 millimeters. And I really, and like what Phil was saying before, look how small the island looks now, and not like small, like too small, but it really condenses everything, and you can really see the kitchen. You're not looking at an aircraft carrier island and some like a refrigerator off in the distance, right? You're seeing everything close, everything compact, and it looks like an attractive photo. So that's why I like to back up and zoom in. Next thing I do is I use my rule of thirds for balance, and trying to also, these lines and all these things have a psychological purpose to them also. These lines, like our brain divides these photos up in a certain way and all this stuff. Tony Colangelo goes really in depth into all this stuff and compositions too. He has a tutorial for it if you guys really want to get in deep into learning how to do, consistently good compositions. His tutorial is awesome. So I'd highly recommend that. So try to find the dominant lines and selling features. So the kitchen, the stove, the pocket doors over here, and whatever else. Like you can see there's dominant lines happening, and there's selling features that are happening on the lines. And the next thing is those intersections, the PowerPoints. Try to place things on here if you can. Our eyes are going to go to those areas of the photos, and if you can try to use them to your advantage, to put things that are of interest on those intersections, you're going to do yourself a favor, because you end up with a more attractive, more balanced photo, and it's just easier for the viewer to digest what they're looking at. And this is all just to make your photos more attractive, basically.
Hey Gary, we have a question.
What's that?
It's coming from Christopher. He asked, are you carrying your camera bag around the house with you? And if so, how do you efficiently use multiple lenses through a shoot?
Good question. In this house, I brought my camera bag in because I was going to use shift lenses. I was going to use different zoom lenses. And I took a long time shooting this house. We're not going over running and stuff really today. We're going over how to achieve an above average look here. So on this house in particular, yeah, I was able to carry my bag around and take my time with the photo shoot. Now that being said, I try not to disrupt myself too much either. There was actually a laundry room right behind me. So let me, where's that other photo? This one right here. So back behind where the refrigerator is, there's a little laundry room back there, and I had all my stuff staged in there. So my extra bags, I think I had my tripod bag because I had some light stands. I was using multiple lights in this house too. So all my stuff would get staged kind of in a close area, but out of the way at the same time.
Was this a
And that's
luxury, a part of your luxury package, or was this a premium?
this was, I think I was doing the luxury one here on this one, but it wasn't an all day shoot. I had a few hours, and I just basically had to get,
Yeah.
our standard 25 images or whatever for them. Pretty sure I overshot it, but also I was trying to, this was probably one of the first really big luxury homes I got to shoot, or really nice ones. And I wanted to earn this client's business. And truth be told, several years later after I shot this place, she is one of my biggest clients still. And she's brought me more business than any other client that I've ever had. Like, she refers me all the time. And she actually told me after she listed this property, she had like 50 phone calls the first day, and 40 of them were asking who did the photos. There were other realtors asking who did the photos for her. So it, your name, putting in the extra effort, sometimes you might not make the dollar on that job, but you never know what it could lead to. Because I mean, just from me putting in the extra effort on this, this lady has brought me tens, if not $100,000, altogether with referrals and everything else. Like, it's just a consistent source of money. She's still referring me today, so it pays off in the end.
I think to go back to Christopher's question, I think one thing I do is, I mean, carrying zoom lenses is, for our business, is so much more efficient than using prime lenses. But if you have a 16-35 and a 24-70, if you have one of those on you, it takes no time to switch out the lens on that camera, on a camera, and that'll cover your pretty much your whole focal range that you would need. But I mean, what I usually just use a 16-35 because I'm not I don't have a lot of luxury homes like we do, like Gary does in San Diego. But I go through and shoot my normal real estate stuff, and then I'll switch on to a prime, like a 50 millimeter, and do a lot of close up detail shots
details. Yeah.
at the end. And that, I think that's more efficient than doing that in between. I can get through the house quickly and then focus on creating those vignettes and things that the realtors like to throw on social media that gets you your next job.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing I do is, actually, I have I think it's a think tank pouch, and it's like a little belt pouch, and it's probably big enough to hold 2 lenses in it, and some batteries, and a cloth or whatever. But sometimes I use that too, especially during twilights. If I know, like, the front shot, I'm going to want to use my 24-70, but then I'm going to have to haul ass to the backyard and throw on my 16-35. I'll just put my little pouch on my belt, and I just swap lenses real quick like that. Kind of like when you're shooting a wedding. Like, I've shot countless weddings, and I always roll with 2 lenses or 3 lenses on me, just because a lot of the time I'm second shooter, and my responsibility is to do all the details, all the male portraits, and I have to do some establishing shots. I have to shoot the food, I have to shoot the tables, I have to shoot the whole room, the ballroom. I got to do so many different things that I don't want to have to go in my bag every time. It just eats up time. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I would approach that stuff. We good to keep going? All right.
Sounds good.
So last thing I do is I question the edges, and I fill the frame with my subject. Like, that's, so you can see from this shot right here, the dining room, the subject is the dining room, and all the edges, I feel like there's some stuff that I was able to crop out that really didn't add anything to the photo. I wouldn't say took away much, but I think it's more distracting than anything. And I was able to crop in and give you what I wanted you to actually look at and take away the stuff that was going to, I would say, just kind of muck up the photo. Um, Trying to be as concise as possible and only give the amount of info that you really need to give is a way to just, it's just thinking like concise, like kind of like cut the fat away. And I think that's a good way to do stuff.
I
It's
think
not always shooting super wide. I kind of like getting in tight if you can. Was that?
I think also what also helps is it kind of creates a psychological effect because if you crop in, you lose that wall on the right, and then it's on the viewers to put that wall in with their mind, and it makes the room bigger because they don't realize, okay, there's a wall there, and it cuts
Yeah,
the room off. So
yeah. And
it
then in one
makes
of
it
my
actually
other
seem
photos,
bigger.
they'll be able to see what's actually there, you know.
Hmm.
But this photo in particular, I don't really want you looking at that. I want your focus going right down the middle. I want you to see the table, and then I want you to see how the kitchen is connected to it right behind it, and the symmetry and just how everything is gorgeously lined up and carried throughout the house. So, um, and I think that's my spiel on composition. So that's kind of how I approach it, and that's kind of what I do to make the shots that I make. You know, and like I said, I think that composition has is the most important part of making an attractive photo. So if you like my work, chances are you like my compositions. And then I add to it with my processing and stuff like that. But the compositions are probably the most important thing to me.